Halloween Horror Nights top 10 haunts have mastered the art of the scare, and you won't believe the lines that were crossed in the best haunt they've ever created. At first, they're so frightening your heart skips a beat and you're fearing for your life. But just for a moment, until you remember it's all fake. Eventually, the bloodshed becomes so gleefully graphic that it's no longer scary. It's comical, and that fun factor is what many of us are accustomed to. But what about after that? What about when the gravity of the horrors become real, inescapable, when the haunt can't end quick enough and that sense of fun is replaced only with dread? These are Orlando's top 10 haunts and part 2 to the grand finale of the HHN Countdown. For the final time this series, I'm SixBillium, along with the Scaredy Cats, who are collectively sharing the brain cell right now. From 2010 to 2024, we've tallied 115 haunts from the very worst, and now we're all the way up to the first. Make sure to check out this series from the very beginning, not just to yell at me for all the hot takes and wrong opinions, but to understand the history of HHN and why these upcoming haunts may be more monumental than you thought. And we're starting this top 10 off with an undisputable slasher legend. Well, Halloween 2022 may be one of the worst haunts I've personally done. It's all thanks to the night he first came home. 2014's Halloween is simply one of the best. The scariest IP haunt, based on existing media like a movie, that I have ever done, and likely ever will do. Now, we all knew for decades at this point that Michael Myers was a true titan of terror, and Orlando's first full-length faithful adaptation proved sharp narrative choices always overshadow gimmicky jump scares. Laurie Strode never quite knew where the shape was lurking, and by sprinkling shocking moments of cold-blind terror throughout, like that staple Mannequin Palooza, only smack dab in the middle of the haunt this time, more accurately reflected the unending sense of paranoia. By creating an intimate claustrophobia we rarely saw later in the franchise, wading through the closed-in scenery and narrow corridors wasn't just scary, it was tactile and skin-crawling. There's a reason Michael Myers became a jump scare celebrity after this haunt, for better or worse. And knowing this wasn't even the scariest haunt from 2014 goes to show how good HHN is at the top of their game. Plus, going through this one next to Laura Tyler the year after she won Face Off was pretty freaking cool, too. While many upcoming haunts on this list may be even scarier than Halloween, some are completely unhinged in a slightly different way. 2018 Slaughter Cinema knew exactly what it was about and what it wanted to be, and that's why it made a killing at the box office. A goldmine of one-shot scenes from the scary to the absurd to the horny? Thematically consistent, but tonally anything but. Expertly shifting from the lighthearted fun to actually pretty creepy, and sometimes both at the exact same time. Midnight Snack 2, Amazon Cannibals from Planet Hell, Shitty's Kids, which really should have been Shitty's Cats, but I digress, stand out amongst the pack of instant classics, grounding the gruesome killers and outlandish creatures in equally zany aesthetic environments. This larger-than-life meme reel still stands on its own, but
you gotta have a sequel!
Sadly, number 2 only hinted at the possibilities of these franchises, while the OG went all in on creating unforgettable one-shot scenes. That's why it's the best haunt from 2018, even if it borrowed DNA from another comedic mashup. You're not the first. Previously perfected by everyone's favorite depraved late-night talk show host, 2011's HR Blood and Guts presents Holidays of Horror, with somehow even schlockier. This kooky collection of holiday bits was much meaner in tone, relishing in gruesome gags and more than a few sudden moments, much scarier than expected. Plus, through a guest-activated trigger, you could launch a nuke from the Oval Office. This segment hasn't aged well in 3 years. Regardless, with his menacing charisma, Larry Kurtzberg rightfully became a legendary face character for HHN, and thankfully provided one of the best HR experiences you could get. Get your chuckles in now, because there's no more funny haunts left on this countdown. Just me. Now, I could count exactly 4 moments in the last 15 years where I cracked under the intensity of a haunted house. And the worst of those? Well, it happened in this very next one. tenser than Insidious, more visceral than Scarecrow, aggressively intense compared to Blood Moon. 2014's Dollhouse of the Damned may have seemed innocent enough from the outside, but once inside, no other has managed to create such a foreboding sense of dread and unease throughout. This built from Doll's house was just as alive as the countless nightmares found within. Always watching, stalking, waiting for the perfect time to strike. And the Hoarder is still a personal favorite of mine for best original character.
Hey, you pretty.
The music box may have been the scene that broke me, but the relentless dolls in the walls immediately after was an unmistakably cruel design. If you look real close at your screen, you can see exactly where I earned my membership to Weenie Hut Jr. Like and subscribe so peeing myself in a haunted house wasn't completely for naught. Halloween and Michael Myers already had a leg up when it came to designing fear, but here, the Horror Nights crew meticulously manufactured the terror up from the tiniest building blocks, those demented faces returning year after year as a reminder of this nightmare. Which is why Dollhouse of the Damned is the best haunt from 2014. I'd truly sell my soul for a haunt this scary again.
The deal is done.
Okay, listen, I meant more metaphorically sell my... oh wait, I forgot. I already sold my soul to Not Scary Farm. But we're talking about HHN's Hall of Fame, and it's quite remarkable that the shortest haunt on this countdown, 2023's The Darkest Deal, topped, 118 of its peers? But just exactly how? Was it the clearly defined story with memorable character moments? The brilliant lighting that kept the biggest scares and secrets obscured in the shadows? Or more likely, the unmistakable sound design of each scene, creating an atmosphere so thick that it practically oozed from the walls? Or maybe it was just all of it. The Darkest Deal is why I've covered these foundations, these heralds of fear throughout most of this countdown. When each one is executed this well, and every single moment is a triumph, the short haunt doesn't seem like it's the one that's missing something. I guess if I did have to find a fault,
I don't know how any of them could play their instruments without mouthpieces.
Jokes aside, any of those minor details are incomparable to the spectacular ebb and flow between somber terror to those visceral scares that lead into an exceptional climax. I'm gonna miss Pine Straw Spruce. That's a gnarly way to go. Now, before we unveil the top 5 haunts, I'd like to take a quick moment to look back and honor those victims who are cemented in the Halloween Horror Nights Hall of Fame.
I just like to be on the main stage and become famous.
Too easy. Happy Halloween, audience kids!
And I now have made it to the inner circle of the best job in the world, which is entertaining each and every one of you.
For 23 years, this was all we knew about Dr. Oddfellow. A name, but not a true face. That is, until Dr. Oddfellow's twisted origins, the most important creation of the 2020s so far. By resurrecting the narrative icon haunt, Horror Nights proved that they hadn't abandoned their passion for creating engaging lore and charismatic villains, finally highlighting what exactly occurred on that fateful night between Jack and Dr. Oddfellow. From journeying under the bleachers and through the back of tent areas, weaving around these carnival fear grounds was shockingly scary. A clown haunt that really didn't have a single moment of humor. There wasn't time to laugh with the darkly comedic aspects, always masked by a sinister presence or a terrifying payoff.
I'm laughing!
Nothing in this haunt was there by chance. Every detail of this backstory deliberate and purposeful. The dialogue quotable and, quite frankly, iconic.
Your souls have been distorted and you are mine. Kill them!
Much like the celestial chimeras found inside, Oddfellow's grand circus and exposition was both something familiar, yet completely distinct and utterly unforgettable. Paying homage to the past by subverting every expectation, I'd certainly say that Dr. Oddfellow did reignite that old school HHN flame. That moment your eyes are still adjusting to the dark and you stand in giddy awe is the best moment you'll ever have at the event. The second best is when you're in the presence of a haunt like Gothic. A spectacle so grand, it makes the entire conga line sound like Owen Wilson. Wow. That's not to say the spooks took a night off, but the effects in this cathedral were unreal. Crafting these atmospheric scares in larger-than-life environments. In fact, with its colossal sets and non-stop aerial acrobatics, Gothic set the standard so high that only one haunt as of late has been able to match its grandiose scale. I'll always appreciate Horror Nights at the top of its technological game, but there's a real wonderment in simplicity being executed this exceptionally well. Yeah, what do I know? But Gothic is a universal top 5, or top 3, for most anyone who was lucky enough to wander its halls. Just ask them how looking over that railing into the mirror and believing they were 30 feet in the air, even if for a second, felt. Wow. 2012 may have lost a haunt to Transformers construction, but a number one that was this good certainly helped cushion the blow. But now we've made it to the top 3. This next one has to be even bigger and crazier, right? After all, you've listened to me whine about this needed more unique scare tactics, or this wasn't kinetic enough and had no movement. And my personal favorite, this scene couldn't even justify its existence. But the reality is that 2021's Case Files Unearthed wasn't the most advanced or memorably terrifying, but it was the first haunt in a decade that truly felt like a love letter to old school HHN fans. Plus, the blocking and misdirection is some of the best there's been. The layers in the sets introducing a depth and dimension that let the action take center stage. There's really no need for massive set pieces when there's no time to get bored. With so much variety and detail, each scene bringing new ideas and quite literally new mysteries to unravel. Remember the legions of horror we talked about last time? Like I said, the attention to detail is immaculate, but never once did Case Files feel overwhelming. This is the HHN that I fell in love with. The engrossing mythology with mysteries abound and stories hidden within every single nook and cranny. Legendary Truth, Horror Unearthed, these stories and experiences were my escape and meant so much to me when I was growing up as the weird kid that liked Halloween instead of sports, getting bullied and close to giving up every single day. This is the HHN that saved my life. Until the day I die, this is what it's all about to me. Case Files is one of the best haunts to ever exist, plain and simple. It may not top this countdown, but it is the #1 haunt that couldn't be brought to life anywhere else besides at Horror Nights. Love your passions, love them passionately, but just don't be a dork about it. Man, teenagers still scared the living dork out of me. And man, was it cathartic to see these entitled juveniles get their comeuppance in 2019's Graveyard Games. Is a haunted house still scary if you're actively rooting for the bad guys to win the entire time? Absolutely. And arguably, the next haunt might be the only one scarier. Despite masquerading as a simple graveyard, this technical marvel was far more than just a modernized winter's night. With huge effects, dynamic lighting sequences, and synchronized scares, the onslaught was never ending. No matter how much we want to be on the good side of the glowing mommy, the glowing mother, that's what I said. It's unimaginably grim to witness the punishment she doles out. Those recurring interactions throughout Ascension Parish. Those that had us cheering for the undead in one scene, only to be wetting our pants in terror during the following, were Graveyard Game's strongest attribute. And when the kiddos come out to play, it's game over, man. Game over. At the end of the day, Horror Nights is fun. A sandbox for gore, set pieces, and scares. But it's easy to remember that it's all make-believe. That is, until something like Graveyard Games comes along that is so unsettling that suddenly getting scared isn't fun anymore. It feels real, and that line between reality is blurred. 2011's Nightingales Blood Prey isn't just HHN's best. It was more than a haunt, an intense gauntlet, and it was hell, but not the type of hell that has become a punchline. Unleashing the most horrifying monsters you could ever imagine into a non-stop assault of scenes with the dead and dying being feasted upon. Within these trenches, there was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, no moment of respite, an indescribable nightmare conjured like no other. The real terror lay not in a sprawling battlefield, but in the gruesome set pieces that show just enough to let your mind fill in the blanks. That is in between the unrelenting Nightingale attacks around every single turn. Simple, bold, and horrific imagery conveying more terror than a ginormous budget ever could. I didn't even learn until a decade later that Nightingales used the soundtrack for BioShock 2. I guess it finally was BioShock. When a haunt is so scary, so engrossing, that I couldn't even recognize the songs that I'd been playing on repeat for months, that's proof of the greatest haunted house that Halloween Horror Nights Orlando has ever done. And for our final rewards, I'll give the Scaredy Cat for scariest scene to the Lost Little Lambs crypt in Graveyard Games. I think this might be my single favorite scene in Horror Nights history. And the Soiled Shorts for best actor scare has gotta go to this thing from Dollhouse of the Damned. I never need to relive this memory again. The Melted Plastic for best facade, I'm gonna actually award to Dr. Oddfellow's Twisted Origins. It's nigh impossible to pick my favorite facade of all time, but at the most foundational level, this intro set the scene so well, the closest I've felt to actually being there. And the big brain for best effects, the best effect of all is another mirror gag, this time from Gothic. Wow is truly the only word I have. It's not about the technology, it's about the reaction. Well, here it is in all its glory, the final countdown, 125 haunts from worst to first. HHN changed my life as a kid, and as an adult through this fandom and the countdown, it's changed it even more. So if this series has meant anything at all to you, please like, subscribe, drop a comment. Any little action like that helps the channel so much. And trust me, I've got a lot more videos I want to make. I'm gonna spend the next couple of months finishing some projects I've worked on in between the countdown, so those can finally see the light of day. And of course, eventually, the HHN Countdown Director's Cut. More haunts, more history, the way that I always envisioned this series being presented from the time I started it. But what do you want to see? Let me know. I'm SixBillium, and thanks for tuning in to the HHN Countdown.